In the summer of 2023, Missouri man Michael Campbell was arrested in Springfield for attacking and threatening his neighbors with an array of weapons that included a machete, shovel, pitchfork, and axe. Violence had erupted in the 1700 block of West Olive Street after a resident had berated 47-year-old Campbell for throwing garbage from his house onto the street. Campbell responded by striking the man with the shovel and punching him in the head. Other neighbors became involved in the conflict, and Campbell attacked them as well, constantly renewing his weapons. He was arrested and charged with 3 felony counts of unlawful use of a weapon, 1 felony count of armed criminal action, 1 count of 4th-degree assault, and 1 count of littering. Campbell denied any responsibility and claimed that he was actually the victim in the incident. The man was a registered offender with a criminal career spanning nearly 3 decades and was frequently featured in the media as the world's scariest criminal. That reputation stemmed from the infractions themselves, but also from his terrifying tattoos that included a pentagram on his forehead, skeletal features on his face, and a bow tie on his neck with a pit bull below it. In 1995, when he was 20 years old, Campbell was arrested for assault in the 1st degree after trying to abuse a girl in her early teens in Denver, Colorado. The dramatic change in his appearance could be tracked through his subsequent mugshots. In 2003, when he was booked for theft in Jefferson County, Colorado, Campbell had only a few tattoos, but by his 2008 arrest, his face had become what many described as a demonic mask. There was some suspicion that he drastically altered his appearance in an attempt to cover his past as a serial abuser. Nevertheless, more arrests in that regard followed, most notably in 2021 when Campbell attempted to abuse a woman while she slept next to her boyfriend at a home in Greene County, Missouri. Number 11. Sammy Marts. The arrest of 47-year-old West Virginia man Sammy Marts in January of 2023 resulted in a disturbing mugshot. The man's wide-eyed, disheveled beard and overall deranged appearance was all the more terrifying given the context of his crimes. He'd been taken into custody for torturing a woman while holding her against her will for several hours. Local law enforcement responded to a domestic disturbance call on Lander Road in Felipe and found the victim hiding under a neighbor's porch. She told officers that Marts had prevented her from leaving his home that morning by hitting her in the face. During the hours that followed, Marts beat her repeatedly, sat on her, and burned her stomach and legs with a butane torch. The victim eventually escaped the residence by jumping out a rear window and was able to hide from Marts. She had various injuries, including burns and an eye that was swollen shut. The Barbour County Sheriff's Department and West Virginia State Police troopers took Marts into custody and searched the home, whereupon they found a considerable quantity of methamphetamine and a firearm. The man was arrested for kidnapping, domestic battery, malicious assault and possession of a controlled substance. In January of 2024, he pleaded guilty to malicious assault. He was sentenced to no less than 2 and no more than 10 years in the West Virginia Penitentiary. Number 10. Bryan Adams. While high on methamphetamine, in January of 2014, a Florida father took his preteen son into the woods in Okeechobee County with the alleged intention of performing an exorcism. On January the 15th, Bryan Adams showed up to the workplace of his estranged wife, claiming that he was seeing demons and demanding her car keys so that he could take the children. The woman had reportedly left 31-year-old Adams due to his addiction to crystal meth. At around 3 a.m. on January the 16th, Adams snatched his son from his bed, telling him, "You are a demon, and you know what I must do with you." Fortunately, law enforcement caught up with them as they went into the soggy underbrush and took custody of the boy, who was unharmed. Officers tried to arrest Adams, but he fled deeper into the woods. When he was cornered, the man fought back against 3 officers and a canine unit, displaying no showing of pain and abnormal strength. A taser proved ineffective, and Adams reportedly said during the confrontation, "I have to stop the demons. I have to do it." Realizing the suspect wasn't going to relent in his onslaught, Deputy Mark Margaram subdued him by repeatedly punching him in the face. Adams was arrested on charges of child abuse, resisting arrest and aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer. The injuries he'd sustained in the fight with the cops were visible in his booking photo, as the man exhibited severe swelling and bruising. Number 9. Tolulope Oluwakorede Adetayo. On August the 8th of 2021, Nigerian woman Tolulope Oluwakorede Adetayo called a hospital in Prince George's County, Maryland, and threatened to blow it up. Her reason for doing so was unclear, but there was no doubt in her words. When she issued the threat, an operator asked Adetayo to repeat herself, and she doubled down. Once the woman was identified, an arrest warrant was issued in her name for threat of mass violence. On August the 12th, she was tracked down to an address in the 3500 block of Hubbard Road in Landover. When deputies arrived at the residence, they were told Adetayo wasn't there, but were given consent to search the premises. The woman was found hiding in a hall closet. She was removed and taken into custody without incident. The arrest attracted media attention due to Adetayo's mugshot. As the photo was taken, the woman rolled her eyes in the back of her head, leaving only the white parts visible, resulting in an eerie and unsettling appearance. Number 8. Hris RIjur, a New Zealand gang member described by international media as having the scariest mugshot ever when the photo was released in September of 2022 as part of a local manhunt. 27-year-old Hris RIjur, who was part of the mongrel mob, stared down the camera with his piercing gaze, enhanced by black tattoos around his eyes. He also had a swastika in the center of his face with the words Zieg and Heil on each side. Additionally, Jury had the word mongrel in thick red letters tattooed across the lower half of his face and a bulldog on his forehead. At around noon on August the 30th of 2022, Jury drove to a drug distribution house in the suburb of Linwood in Christchurch. He went to a window where the sales of synthetic cannabis occurred and shot a man in the legs. A bullet went through the victim's right upper thigh before going in and out of his left upper thigh. Jury and the victim reportedly didn't know each other. The former drove away from the scene and fled the city on an Air New Zealand plane a few hours after shooting, sparking a manhunt. The public was warned to keep their distance as the man was extremely dangerous. He remained on the run for just over a month before he was arrested in Hastings. In December of 2022, Jury pleaded guilty to wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm in connection to the shooting. In an unrelated matter, he also admitted assault and injuring with intent to injure for attacks on fellow inmates at Christchurch Prison. Jury claimed that the shooting was a spur-of-the-moment thing I did, but the prosecution believed it was a taxing offense by one gang on another. Jury's lawyer claimed that his behavior was a consequence of ADHD and the normalization of violence in the world he was raised in. Judge Russell Collins was sympathetic to that argument, telling Jury, "You were born into the mongrel mob. You had no choice." He rejected the Crown's request for life imprisonment and instead sentenced Jury to 9 years and 6 months. Number 7. David Watson. On 3 separate occasions, in December of 2012, David Watson and his friend Orin Jowdry fired into the homes of law enforcement officers in Maryland and Delaware. The duo drove by the residences and shot them up, but no injuries were reported. Watson, who had a tattoo of the word evil on the back of his head, was said to have orchestrated the attacks. Jowdry testified against him and received a 15-year sentence. Watson was told by a judge that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars and was sentenced to 106 years. On April the 28th of 2017, Watson was being transferred to the Clifton T. Perkins Hospital Center in Howard County for a court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. Watson slipped his restraints during the drive. When the prison van arrived in the parking lot of the psychiatric hospital and a guard opened the door, Watson pushed him aside and fled into the woods. For the next 6 days, He survived by drinking water from puddles and eating from trash cans. Law enforcement searched the area extensively by land and air before they eventually received a tip that Watson was hiding in a drainage pipe. Officers searched it during the day but couldn't locate him, so they returned when it got dark and used night vision to recheck the pipe. Watson was found inside and he surrendered to the authorities. His booking photo showed the 28-year-old with what appeared to be blood on his face, but the authorities reported that he was in good condition. Number 6. Jacqueline Burge. A Florida woman displayed severe facial injuries in her mugshot after leading law enforcement on a high-speed chase through Sarasota County in July of 2018. Jacqueline Burge sped away when deputies tried to pull her over. She drove through a residential yard, struck a deputy's vehicle, and continued barreling down residential streets before going on the I-75. She collided with another official vehicle as she drove in the opposite direction on the southbound lane. Some drivers went off-road and others brought their vehicles to a stop while struggling to avoid her. A motorist traveling in the northbound lane captured the vehicle pursuit's climactic end as Burge crashed head-on with another vehicle. In spite of sustaining injuries, Burge got out and attempted to flee on foot, but was quickly apprehended. The driver she'd crashed into was unhurt, while Burge's mugshot showed her with black eyes and blood coming from her mouth and nose. During a search of her vehicle, the police found methamphetamine, prescription pills, narcotic equipment, and several miscellaneous ID cards. Burge was arrested on multiple charges that included aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer, and possession of a controlled substance. She had a dozen past arrests in Sarasota County for crimes such as grand theft, burglary, and sale of synthetic narcotics, among others. Number 5. Adam Nolin. In September of 2018, Adam Nolin fatally shot his girlfriend, 27-year-old Tia Mae Randall, at her Creekside Estates mobile home in Wyoming, Michigan. Nolin was reportedly enraged because Randall was interested in another man and killed her via a single gunshot to the head. In the aftermath, the 33-year-old called his mother, who in turn alerted the authorities. Nolin was spotted in his 1996 black Dodge pickup truck, and he went onto US 131 when local police initiated a traffic stop. He reportedly reached speeds of nearly 100 miles per hour during the ensuing pursuit. Nolin crashed into a concrete median after Wyoming Police Sergeant Jeremy Walter spun his truck out by using a tactical driving maneuver. The suspect got out and fled on foot, firing back at the officers chasing him at least 5 times. Nolin was in the middle of the highway when Grand Rapids police officer Todd Lewis plowed into him with his patrol SUV and sent him flying. The impact was captured on cell phone video by an onlooker. Law enforcement decided to expedite the legal proceedings by processing Nolin at the hospital. His mugshot thus showed the bloody injuries he'd sustained after being run over. On August 12th of 2019, Nolin was sentenced to life without parole for Randall's murder and was additionally given concurrent terms of 19 to 50 years for the attempted murder of the police officers. Number 4. Dustin Jacob Williams. On April the 25th of 2006, Oregon man Dustin Jacob Williams was arrested by law enforcement in Beaverton. The 20-year-old was taken into custody for brandishing a BB gun outside a middle school. His mugshot made local news. Williams flashed a smile as he stared into the camera, while his face was painted red with black accents around the eyes and mouth. His devilish look was compared to that of Star Wars character Darth Maul. His unusual appearance was believed to have been linked to him attending an insane clown posse concert that had taken place in downtown Portland earlier on the same day. Fans of the Michigan horrorcore rap duo typically refer to themselves as juggalos, and much like the rappers themselves, they were known to wear creepy face paint. Number 3. Jamie Knight. 48-year-old Florida man Jamie Knight was pulled over in Marion County in the winter of 2018. Marijuana was found following the search of his vehicle, and Knight admitted that the drugs were his. The man subsequently failed a field sobriety test for THC suggesting that he was driving while intoxicated. The search also produced a set of brass knuckles, which Knight claimed that he carried around for protection. He was arrested for marijuana possession and possession of a concealed weapon. Knight's mugshot subsequently attracted attention online due to the tattoo of 2 horns that the man had on his forehead. Today's topic was requested by 007 Meth Man and Kumason1. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Michael Don Mitchell. In October of 2012, 38-year-old Michael Don Mitchell was arrested and charged with burglary in Gregg County, Texas. Mitchell had broken into a home in Lakeport from which he took roughly $87 in cash, a black fleece hoodie, and a can of ravioli. When the police cornered the man, they noticed a particularly incriminating detail. Mitchell had red sauce smeared on his lips, which according to an arrest report was consistent with the sauce used in Chef Boyardee raviolis. The man was taken to a Gregg County jail and booked on a $10,000 bond. Mitchell's arrest produced a mugshot that online users found particularly creepy due to the man's lost gaze and nearly translucent appearance. If you thought the frightening stories behind these mugshots couldn't get any more dreadful, then find out what happens when placing an order leads to a series of unfortunate events in our previous release of When the Drive-Thru Goes Wrong. Coming up right after number 1. Number 1. Benito Felipe Crisanto. In 2019, Florida man Benito Felipe Crisanto was jailed for 24 years after pleading guilty to attempted murder with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and burglary with a deadly weapon. Crisanto went viral in the spring of 2017 due to his sinister mugshot, which was taken in the aftermath of a brutal stabbing. In the photo, the 19-year-old lowered his head and grinned menacingly while staring into the camera. On March the 28th, a friend had called Crisanto to his Boynton Beach home to say goodbye because he was moving to New York. Crisanto arrived at the residence armed with a pistol. The friend, a man in his 30s, was able to wrestle the gun from him and ran from the apartment to get help. In the moments that followed, Crisanto targeted his girlfriend. He grabbed her by the waist as she tried to run after her boyfriend and stabbed her repeatedly, saying, "I have to make a sacrifice." She told him that he could have the money that the couple kept in their bedroom. Crisanto made off with roughly $3,000 and the victim collapsed on the sidewalk outside the apartment building. She received treatment and survived the stabbing. Crisanto was subsequently found at a McDonald's restaurant nearby and taken into custody, after which he posed for the nightmarish mugshot. A surveillance camera captured the moment a Tennessee woman fired several gunshots at a Burger King drive-thru in Memphis on March the 30th of 2021. According to a felony complaint on the matter, the patron in question became angry because of how long she'd been waiting to be served. She exited a gray sedan and argued with 2 employees identified as Kataria Thomas and Kyara Banks. As the dispute escalated, Thomas and Banks were allegedly threatened by the woman, who then retrieved a handgun. The 2 employees escaped out the back door as shots were fired at them. The suspects subsequently fled the scene, leaving Thomas and Banks unharmed. Investigators recovered one .38 caliber shell casing behind the register and another on the drive-thru window frame. 3 days later, authorities received a tip identifying the suspect as 32-year-old Keona Jackson, whose rap sheet included a pair of theft convictions. Jackson was arrested later on April the 12th and booked into the Shelby County Jail in lieu of a $250,000 bond. She was charged with 2 counts of attempted murder and using a firearm during the commission of a felony. Number 9. LCll Nichols. In March of 2021, LCll Nichols was attacked by an employee working the drive-thru at a Chicken Express in Dallas, Texas. Nichols was allegedly served the wrong order during his visit to the restaurant on March the 10th. In the spirit of recompense, he was offered a discount on his next order. When Nichols went back to Chicken Express on March the 20th, the employee on duty refused to honor the discount. Another employee, Terry Hall, subsequently spoke with Nichols, at which point the situation became confrontational. Hall propelled himself through the takeout window, lunging at Nichols. The customer sustained multiple injuries as a result of the altercation. As of the latest updates provided by KXAN News, Nichols had filed a lawsuit against the restaurant. Number 8. Sylvester Zola. A New York mob associate named Sylvester Zola ordered a cup of coffee at a Bronx McDonald's on October the 4th of 2018. At approximately 4:45 p.m., the 71-year-old was waiting in his Acura SUV in the drive-through line when a gunman suddenly emerged and shot him several times. The shooter then fled, leaving Sylvester with wounds to the head, chest, and shoulder. The man, who reportedly owned a multi-million-dollar business, died at the scene. Law enforcement initially believed that the attempts on the victim's life, of which there had been 6 in the year leading up to his death, were mob hits or a former business associate wanting him dead. Meaningful developments came about in the investigation after a tracking device was found on Sylvester's car by police. This discovery ultimately revealed that the victim's 41-year-old son, Anthony Zola Sr., had been behind the murder. Anthony had allegedly been trying to take over his father's $45 million real estate empire. According to court records, he'd schemed against his father for over a year, paying more than $200,000 to Bloods, street gang members, to execute the hits, most of which had failed. He was arrested on June the 17th of 2019 and convicted of the patricide over 3 years later. On April the 14th of 2023, a federal judge in Brooklyn sentenced Anthony to life behind bars without the possibility of parole. 7 other men pleaded guilty in connection with the assassination attempts. Number 7. Jorge Valenzuela Ramirez. Shots fired through a fast food drive-through window in Phoenix, Arizona left a woman injured and a man dead in early December of 2022. The incident took place at the Jack in the Box on West Bell Road near 19th Avenue on the night of the 8th. 2 female employees had been arguing about taking out the trash. According to ABC 15, 19-year-old Jorge Valenzuela Ramirez stepped in to break up the heated confrontation between the 2 women, one of whom was his 22-year-old girlfriend. The other employee subsequently went home and told her boyfriend, Christopher Candia, about the fight. 29-year-old Candia then showed up at the establishment, slapped Ramirez, and fired shots in his direction before speeding away from the scene. After sustaining critical wounds in the shooting, Ramirez and his girlfriend were taken to a hospital where the former ultimately died. Candia later contacted Phoenix police and admitted to being the shooter. He was booked at the Maricopa County Jail, charged with second-degree murder, aggravated assault, and discharging a firearm at a non-residence. Number 6. Bellevue Sonic. In November of 2020, Nebraska resident Roberto Carlos Silva Jr. ignited materials in a rental truck and opened fire at the Sonic Drive-In in Bellevue. Days earlier, on November the 18th, 23-year-old Silva reportedly used someone else's payment method to get $57 worth of food at the same fast food restaurant, located near 15th Street and Cornhusker Road. After the restaurant alerted authorities, Silva was arrested and charged with identity theft. He pleaded guilty and bonded out of jail 2 days later. On November the 21st, shortly before 9:23 p.m., he drove a U-Haul truck to the restaurant. Upon arrival, he threw an incendiary device in the vehicle, setting it ablaze. He then proceeded to fire gunshots at Sonic employees. 2 workers died at the scene while 2 others were taken to the University of Nebraska Medical Center in the aftermath. Shortly after the incident, Silva was held in custody at the Sarpy County Jail for 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, and 1 count of first-degree arson. In October of the following year, the young man revealed that his motive for the crime had been to eliminate witnesses pertaining to his identity theft case. On March the 7th of 2022, Silva pleaded guilty. The county attorney's office announced that they would be seeking the death penalty. Number 5. Jasyn and Jonte Adams. Jonte Adams and his daughter were fired upon as they were driving through a McDonald's in Chicago, Illinois, on the afternoon of April the 18th of 2021. At approximately 4:20 p.m., 29-year-old Adams was struck by a single bullet while his child, Jasyn, sustained several gunshot wounds. They were taken to Stroger Hospital in Cook County where Jasyn was pronounced dead. Surveillance footage revealed that the gruesome act was perpetrated by two gunmen who'd fled the scene in a silver Audi S8. CBS News reported that 45 shell casings were recovered by Chicago police at the restaurant on Roosevelt Road. Law enforcement described Jonte as a member of a gang and said that the shooting had been carried out by rival gangsters. Investigators later identified the suspects as Marion Lewis, Demond Gowdy, and Devontae Anderson. Police believed that Gowdy and Anderson, both aged 21, had been the ones who pulled the trigger, while 18-year-old Lewis served as the getaway driver. Lewis was taken into custody on April the 22nd, followed by Gowdy's arrest on the 26th. 3 months later, Anderson was also arrested. The three suspects were facing multiple charges, including first-degree murder, and were held without bond at the Cook County Jail. Number 4. Bernard Robinson. 22-year-old overnight manager Bernard Robinson was attacked by a customer early on the morning of November the 3rd of 2015. The incident occurred at the McDonald's on Stinson Boulevard in Minneapolis, Minnesota. According to an eyewitness, as Robinson handed 31-year-old Madat Fashir his change, some of the money fell on the ground. Fashir then got out of his car, spat on the drive-through window, and tried to throw a punch at the manager. He yanked on Robinson's tie, pulling his upper body out of the window. Robinson later said that the suspect was tugging on his tie so tightly that he thought he'd black out. Fashir was ultimately arrested and charged with fifth-degree assault. The Minneapolis Police Public Information Officer said that the incident was a case of a person who'd possibly been under the influence of intoxicants, became irate and acted out physically. Number 3. Santa Clarita In-N-Out. On April the 23rd of 2023, a contentious dispute erupted into utter chaos at an In-N-Out burger drive-thru in Santa Clarita, California. At around 12:30 p.m., two women from a white car in the drive-thru line reportedly accused the passengers of a Subaru of racism. An In-N-Out worker fruitlessly attempted to calm the women and appeared to shake his head in disapproval as the argument spiraled. Two men subsequently exited the Subaru with bottles in hand and tossed liquids at the other vehicle before re-entering their own. A woman from the other car then pounded the hood of the Subaru, from which all passengers exited and came to the driver's side. Profanities were exchanged before a bystander implored both parties to return to their cars and pull forward as people were apparently waiting behind the feuding cars. Eventually, both families went back to their vehicles. According to the Santa Clarita Sheriff's Station, deputies responded to reports of a verbal argument, but neither party wanted to press charges. Number 2. LaPlace McDonald's. 17-year-old Kaylin Holland was arrested after allegedly pulling a McDonald's worker out of a drive-thru window in the city of LaPlace, Louisiana on August the 26th of 2015. Holland was with friends shortly before 8:30 p.m. when an altercation ensued between her and the teen crew member taking the group's order. Precisely what triggered the confrontation was unclear, but the situation escalated into a fiery and profane exchange. Holland then grabbed the worker's hair, dragging her out of the service window and onto the ground. Others in the car allegedly joined the attack, striking the employee. After the incident was reported to the St. John the Baptist Parish Sheriff's Office, police launched an investigation. Holland was arrested on September the 2nd, charged with felony second-degree battery. She was held on a $10,000 bond. In the same week, 3 other females who were involved in the incident were identified. 18-year-old Sierra Grigori and an unnamed teen were given misdemeanor summonses for simple battery. Meanwhile, 20-year-old Bradnika Grigori was given a summons for disturbing the peace. Number 1. Rachel King. A murder-for-hire plot devised over the course of many months was executed in April of 2023, resulted in 35-year-old Rachel King being shot dead inside her vehicle as her son watched in horror. The cold-blooded incident, which unfolded in Cheltenham Township, Pennsylvania, reportedly stemmed from a tryst that King's boyfriend William Hayes was having with another woman, 34-year-old Julie Jean. The affair was eventually broken off by Hayes. Following the breakup, Jean started harassing both Hayes and King. The former filed a protection order against his unhinged ex, which was granted in December of 2022. 2 months later, Jean started orchestrating a plot to murder King, asking 33-year-old Zaki Stephen Al-Hakim to carry it out for her. On the morning of April the 11th of 2023, King was taking her son to violin practice. When she stopped at a Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru, Al-Hakim walked up to her Ford Edge and fired multiple gunshots before fleeing in a silver Mercury Sable, while her son was unharmed. King succumbed to gunshot wounds shortly after 7:30 a.m. The Mercury was found within city limits hours later. After law enforcement attempted to pull it over, Al-Hakim led officers on a chase before ultimately crashing into a fence. At the time, the man was wanted for another murder. When he was interviewed by detectives, he denied being in the township on the day in question and said he didn't know Jean. Detectives also interviewed the latter, who denied any involvement in King's murder. However, after a search warrant for her cell phone was executed, authorities found out that Jean had deleted roughly 800 text messages, including multiple communications with Al-Hakim. The district attorney's office said that photos of King and a Google Maps screenshot of her apartment were recovered from Al-Hakim's phone. Additionally, police discovered that the vehicle used by the hitman while carrying out the crime had been purchased under Jean's name only a month prior. Jean and Al-Hakim were arrested and charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy. As of the latest updates, Jean was being held without bond while Al-Hakim was awaiting his arraignment. The district attorney claimed in a statement that it was a tragic killing of a good person, all because of an affair that had already ended. Thanks for watching. Would you rather alter something in your face or on your body? Let us know in the comments section below.